Okay, today we're going to look at measures of central tendency. Okay, measures of central tendency are a great way to summarize data. They're really good for summarizing a large amount of data, just giving us an idea of the gist or the kind of typical numbers associated with the data. Okay, one way to summarize data is using the mean, which is also known as the average. Okay. To find this mean, all you've got to do is add all the numbers together, add all the numbers in your data together, and then divide that by the number of numbers, and you'll have the mean. Okay, the next one is the median. The median can easily be described as the middle number in the list. So to find the median, you simply put all the numbers in the data in order, and then find the middle number. The middle number is the median. Lastly, the mode. The mode is the most frequent score. So you look at all the scores you've got, find the one that's the most frequent, and that will be the mode. So these are three different ways of measuring central tendency. Let's have a look at how they work in a bit closer detail. Okay, here's the mean expressed in proper mathematical language. So I'll read out what it says. X bar equals the sum of all x's, of all the iterations of x, divided by the number of numbers in the data. Okay, so this thing here, it's an x with a little bar above it. We can call it x bar, and it's the symbol or the mathematical term for the mean. In just here we've got sigma, which is a Greek letter, and it means the sum. So whenever you see sigma, it means you're going to add up some stuff afterwards. And this little x here, this represents all the scores. So this little I could stand for iteration or instances. It means all the different instances of x, or all the different scores. And then that's divided by the sum of all the x's, the sum of all the scores is divided by n, which is the number of numbers in the data, or just the number of scores. Okay, let's look at an example. Here we've got some data. 26847254847. Okay, we've got a bunch of numbers. Let's find the mean of this data. Okay, now our equation says we've got to take the sum of all possible iterations of x and then divide by the number of numbers n, the number of scores. So here we've added together all of the numbers above. And then we've divided them by the number of scores, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So n equals 11, and hence we've got 11 on the bottom here. Okay, for that, let's use a calculator. So all of that comes to 57, then divided by 11, and that comes to 5.18. So 5.18 is the mean. I've given it to 2 decimal places. As a general rule, answers should be to 2 decimal places unless another kind of answer is asked for. Okay, next, let's look at the median. So for the median, if you remember, we need to first put the scores in order. Once we've got the scores in order, the median will be the n+1/2 score in the list. So this little equation here tells us which number in the list will be the one. So this little th is the same th you see on the end of a number like the 4th one in the list or the 10th one in the list. So this is the n+1/2 score in the list. If the median happens to fall between 2 scores, then we would average those 2 scores. We'd take the first score, so let's make a quick little list. 4, 7, 8, and 10. Okay, if this was our data, the median would fall in between the 7 and the 8, and so we'd have to average the 7 and the 8. We'd have to do 7 plus 8 divided by 2 equals 15 divided by 2, which equals 7.5. That would be the median, 7.5. Okay, let's look at our other data. So here's the same list of numbers that we used just before. Let's find the median for these numbers. Okay, first we've got to put them in order. Here we are with the numbers in order. Okay, now our equation said we've got to find the n plus 1 over 2th number in the list. Now I count 11 numbers, so n equals 11. There's 11 scores, so 11 plus 1 divided by 2, 12 divided by 2, which makes 6. So we're looking for the 6th number in the list. Let's count along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. 5 is the median for this data. Lastly, we're going to look at the mode. The mode is the most frequent score in the list. If there are 2 scores equally most frequent, they're both the mode, and if there's more than 2 scores that are equally most frequent, then they're all modes. So normally there'll just be one mode in the data, but if there's 2, we call that bimodal data, and if there's more than 2, we call it multimodal data. Okay, if we look at our old list of data over here again, to find the mode, we just have to look through the list and see if we can find any numbers, find the number that's the most frequent. So it looks like there's a couple of 8s here. We've got 8 twice, so we've got 2 8s. I can see we've got 7 twice as well, but we've got 4 3 times. So there's 3 4s, there's nothing else more frequent than that, so 4 is the mode for this data. Okay, let's look at another example and see if we can find the mean, the median, and the mode for some different data. So this data, instead of being presented in a list, it's presented in a table. Okay, it's looking at the number of visits to the cinema that various people made in a given year. So some people visited the cinema 0 times, 2 people, in fact, visited the cinema 0 times. 3 people visited it once in the year, 3 people visited it twice, 5 visited it 3 times, and so on. Now, if we wanted to, we could actually write this table out as a list of the data. We'd have 0 twice, because the frequency of 0 is 2. We'd have 1 3 times, frequency is 1. We'd have 3 2s. We would have 5 3s. And I'll speed it up a little bit, and we'd have this full list like that. Now, in some ways that's easier to understand, but in fact having the data in this table is going to make our job a little bit easier for finding the mean, the median, and the mode. So in order to find the mean, we need to add up all the scores. If you remember, we need to find the sum of all the x's and divide by the number of scores. Okay, in order to do that, this table is going to help us, because instead of adding up each score individually in a long sort of arduous sum, I can just multiply the frequency of each score by the value of that score. So for example, the frequency of the zeros was 2. So frequency is 2 and the x was 0. Multiply those together, I get 0. How many 1s were there? There was 3. So 3 times 1 gives me 3. The number of 2s was 3, so multiply those together, I get 6. This is 15. This is 8. This is 15. And this is 6. So what I can do now is add these numbers together, and that will give me the sum of all the values. If you try it, you'll find that adding up all of these is exactly the same as adding up all of these. So that's going to save me a little bit of time. In fact, I find that when I add these numbers together, I get 53. So we can put that over here in our equation to find the mean. 53 is the sum of all the x values. And then I've got to put in the number of scores. Now this table also helps me to find the number of scores very quickly. It's just adding up all the frequencies. Each frequency represents a score, so there's 2 scores here, 3 scores here, and so on. So I could count up all these numbers, or it's probably a bit easier to add these ones up. So 2 and 3 is 5, 8, 13, 15, and 3 and 1 is 19. So 53 divided by 19, put it in, and we've got 2.7 equals the mean. I've written mean as x bar here. Okay, now for the median. If you remember, the median is the middle number. Okay, to find which number is the middle number, I can take the number of scores, add 1, and divide by 2, and that will give me the score I'm looking for. So the number of scores is 19, so 19 plus 1 equals 20 divided by 2. So I'm looking for the 10th score. Now this table makes that job a lot easier, but first I have to add in a new column here. I have to add in a cumulative frequency column. So in this column I'm going to add up all the frequencies as they occur. So far I've had a frequency of 2. From this point here though, I've had 2 and this 3 here, so I've got 5 now. Then I've got to add 3 in the next one, so I'm up to 8. 8 plus 5 is 13. 13 plus 2 is 15. And once we chuck in the other ones, we end up with 19 at the end, which agrees with what we had down here. So that's correct. Now, where is the 10th score? Well, up to this point here, we've only had 8 scores so far, so we haven't had the 10th score yet. But by the time we finish looking at this row here, we've had 13 scores by now. So somewhere in between here and here, the 10th score occurred. In fact, it occurred in here. There was only 8 scores here, so the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th scores all happened in this row, which means that the median was the score of 3. Okay, finally we want to find the mode for this data, and nothing could be easier thanks to this table. I've just got to look through to find which one has the highest frequency. It's this one here. 5 is the highest frequency, and that was for 3 visits to the cinema per year. So the mode is also 3, the same as the median was, and you can see that the mean, the median, and the mode are all reasonably close together, which is a good indication that we did it right. Okay, a final example. This time we've got data which is group, and that's going to create a problem for us because in each group we don't actually know what the scores are. All we know from this data is that there were 2 scores in this group, 45 to 50 kilograms. We don't know what they were. Were they 46? Were they 48? Were they 49? We don't know. So when it comes time to work out the mean, where we need to sum all of the scores, we're not going to be able to do that because we don't know what the scores were from this data. So what we have to do is to estimate. Okay, for all the data in this group 45 to 50, we're going to estimate that they were at the midpoint of that group. 47.5 is the midpoint of that group 45 to 50. Okay, now for each of the groups we've estimated a midpoint. 50 to 55, the midpoint's 52.5, and so on. You can see they each go up by 5, the midpoints. And then, as we did with the previous data that was ungrouped, we're going to multiply the score. In this case it's the midpoint, which is our estimate. We're going to multiply the score by the frequency to give us these values here. And then when we add all those up, we'll have the sum of all our scores, or in this case it'll be an estimation of the scores. Well, we've done that. We've added them up to get this number down here, 1167.5. So we can put that up here. That's the sum of all our scores, and then we can divide it by 19, which is our total number of scores, all the frequencies added together. And when we put that in a calculator, we get this is the mean. Okay, to find the median, we need to find the n plus 1th over 2 score. So n in this case is 19, so it's 19 plus 1 divided by 2 equals the 10th score. So to find the 10th score, we need to put in our cumulative frequency value. And when we put in the cumulative frequencies, we find that the 10th score must be occurring in this group here. There's only been 8 scores up to this point, so the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th scores were in here, so they were in this group. The 60 to 65 weight. Now because we can't actually specify which score in that group was the 10th score, we can only specify that the group was the median class. The 60 to 65 kilograms group was the median class. Finally, for the mode, it's pretty easy. We just look at the frequency column and we see that this class, the 60 to 65, had the highest frequency, so that's the modal class. Okay, one final point is to remember that outliers, or large values, they can dramatically affect the mean, but they don't usually affect the median or the mode significantly. So you can pause that and read it if you like. Finally, here's a summary of the key points in measures of central tendency, and thanks for watching the video. You can pause it here and write that down if you like.